Yeah, you should. Yeah, you think. I mean, I've been down there before. It's unique.
Okay, we'll go ahead and call this council work session to order. It's Wednesday, November 1st, times 2 p.m. I'll open it up for visitor comments, which this is an essential part of government meetings. Each person has 3 minutes to speak. We'll take all input into consideration, however, in observance of open meeting laws, time for dialogue. But rather for us to listen to you and our city administrator and report on taking action if needed. Come on up, please come up, state your name for the record.
My name is Ron Collins. I had filed for record documents that, that state the online and offline of the 2 million gallon reservoir for the daily water loss. A 7-year report from 2009 to 2016 resulted in one 24-hour period of 16,000 gallons. I found that interesting that the city determined that the reservoir was requiring rehabilitation. The water report was for June 23rd, 2016, which was 17 days after hiring Kennedy Jenks to plan the rehabilitation. There is no mention of the source of leaking. There is no testing done to determine the source. There is also no concrete surface testing. Kennedy Jenks stated the city would not drain the reservoir. The city's bid document stated no reservoir could be drained prior to October 1st, 2016. The bid opening was October 18th, 2016. Kennedy Jenks designed a plan without ever accessing the reservoir's interior. Kennedy Jenks designed the plan using photos, drawings, and historical documents. The bidders were required to bid on contract W449 without ever being inside the reservoir's interior. They were told to familiarize themselves with the photos and drawings and follow the plan. It was a questionable way of doing business. It is understandable when the bid immediately rose from 269,000 to 477 upon WPI entering the reservoir due to change orders. WPI's completed work increased the leaking to 74,000 gallons a day. The city hired Bear Investigation to determine the source leakage. Bear Investigation, December 20th, 2017, reported to the city of an observation and assessment. BIC was informed that no oversight inspection was performed during the geotextile mat installation or carboline reactivine application for specification compliance. BIC was also informed that the piping inlet and outlet had never been thoroughly tested. BIC, St. Helens Engineers, carboline coatings, long painting with technical representatives, performed a visual inspection of the lining surfaces for the loss of 42,000 gallons a day. The visual inspection results were inconclusive for determining the water loss from the reservoir tank. Although there were areas of leakage due from the compromised lining, a consensus of all personnel involved in the visual inspection is that the cause of the excessive water loss, this is not the cause of the excessive water loss. One or more factors are the main source of water loss.
Any other visitor comments?
Brian Freehead. I want to talk about integrity. This council approved 2 people on the county commission who go to the public one making a false report for police, another about address, and sort of accepted that. Then last week, the mayor and city administrator tried to tell us that the dirt that arrived wasn't there for the police station. obviously patently, no one, there, police station. And if you forgot to tell your attorney that the dirt wasn't there to the police station, because 20 minutes later he goes, oh, now that we've done the site prep for the police station, of course the dirt was at the police station. And it's insulting that you would imply that we didn't know that the dirt was at the police station. And then you have your police chief who came in and attacked a citizen for saying that he didn't know that this was Halloween and that there wasn't gonna be, he didn't know about the parade, and it got dumped on him. I've seen the emails that were presented to Kathy Payne from Heather Epperly, and it's clear that she contacted in St. Helens as far back as June. So him saying he didn't know, there may be problems that he said with the permitting process, which you need to resolve. But the fact of the matter is, he is in a town that's Halloween town, and maybe if he lived in this community, he would realize that this is Halloween town, and that we are going to have a parade, and that's part of living here. And to call the Halloween town parade just a private event that he didn't know anything about how it got dumped in his lot is just not correct. It's false. There are emails out there. Hopefully you've read them. Hopefully you've gotten them. You know that that is not true. And for him to act like he didn't know is just wrong. And we should not accept that level of lack of integrity from anyone, whether it's our police chief, our council people, our mayor, or anyone that's serving on the planning commission. I think integrity matters. And I think that people should tell the truth. It's just that simple.
Any other visitor comments?
Pete Topaz. I have 3 points to bring up today. First, I delivered some thoughts and facts in October 18th work session and gave them to the recorder in writing, which is published in this agenda's meeting are exactly the words I used, and all the words I presented were reported accurately. Thank you. Good job. First item, Halloween Town event is just finished. When will the report of how many attended, how much money was collected at the entrance, how much money was gathered by the vendors, how much did stopping the First Street St. Helens construction intersection cost because of the Halloween event? Second, City Council's placement in the police station does not follow federal guidelines. Does this violation of federal guidelines prevent the city from getting federal monies? When federal monies become available for communication, personnel protection, or other financial assistance, could that help our police department? Or does that keep us from getting it? Third, the presentation was made by an American division of a Chinese-owned company to use our mill sites in St. Helens for the production of solar cells. Presentation indicated the production would be done in a clean room environment. The mill sites here in St. Helens are heavily contaminated, and to build a clean room production facility will be extremely difficult, which is negative. The push by the federal government to encourage clean energy and throwing money at these types of projects could mean an added benefit for cleaning up the environment, and building a green energy facility is a big plus for St. Helens. The big danger sign is the critical solar cell material is made offshore, and the stoppage of this material would shut down total production here. One problem is that our mill site is owned by the Grow Company, as indicated by the records on file in the county. No records have been presented to the city council that the Grow operation ever paid the $4 million for the property, according to the mortgage agreement signed by the city. The sale of this property is being legally discussed in court because of similar procedural problems seem to be evident in the Kelly Street property sale. Thank you.
Okay, other visitor comments? Okay, if you're online.
reoccurring tourism. John asked me to just speak real briefly to you, this afternoon so that you could maybe discuss this and then get back to me later tonight. I wanted to thank everybody that was involved in Halloween this year, including, of course, Public Works, the Kiwanis, the special volunteer groups that get involved, our liaison, Stephanie Patterson. We had a really good month, all things considered, with the parking situation that we had to contend with, which made things really interesting this year. Hiring buses to bring people here and navigating that was a challenge for sure. But the reason I'm here right now is that we're doing Christmas ships on December the 9th, and we were thinking about adding a community activity in the tent on the waterfront, which would be a new addition for families to get together for some special photo ops that we would design inside of that tent. And not knowing what the weather forecast is either, it might provide an opportunity for a drier space for people to be engaged in something that's happening during the holidays. So that's my question, is if you would want to go ahead and do something or give the nod to leave the tent up, which I've cleared with the fire marshal, until probably just after December 9th, when I can get them here to take it down. So that's the question to ponder. If you want to do that, if you don't, that's fine too, but I just realized how muddy the plaza is right now, and if maybe getting people off the plaza, if it's gonna be raining, is probably a good idea. It's really slippery when it gets wet, so thank you.
Okay, if you're online, you need to raise your hand if you want to be acknowledged, and then we'll ask you to mute yourself. Go ahead, Steve.
Hi, Steve Toski. I've applied to be on the budget committee, and we're going to have a quarterly report. And there are certain things I wanted to bring to the council's attention, in that we're having our finance person make a report today. So one of the largest concerns that I have about our current budgeting is the expectation that we're going to be getting a lot of revenue for charges for services and grants when it comes to funding the police and general fund. So looking at our overall budget, projected budget, last year's budget, there's something called an ending fund balance. And I'm thinking that maybe that's cash in the bank. The ending fund balance was proposed to be 1.889 against total revenues of 11.91. And a lot of those revenues are supposed to come from something called charges for government services and grants. So right now on our budget that is being discussed today, our grants are at 500. We have a budget for 811,000. And our charges for services so far, presumably this is collected and by the first quarter, is 1.45 million. One of the questions that I think the council could have for our finance person is, how realistic is it that we are going to reach the goal of the budget of 7.6 million for charges for services and grants of 811,000 by end of Q4? Because if we're not going to be reaching those goals, we're going to have budget shortfalls to pay the police, which is one of our major expenditures, and pay other people. We're already dipping into our beginning fund balance. It says our budget is 2.32, subject to an audit, but according to the published budget, it's 1.889. So I think these are questions we need to start asking: is what are our revenue sources? How realistic is it that we're actually going to achieve these? Can we meet our obligations? And So I'm hoping some of the council members will use their opportunity to with our finance director to ask some questions. Thank you.
Okay, anybody else online? Again, raise your hand. We'll acknowledge you and then ask you to unmute yourself. Also want to note that, Councilor Sundin's on Zoom with us today, so we have a full council today. All right, not seeing any. On to our first item. Police Department semi-annual report, Chief Greenway and Lieutenant Hope. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, council.
Yep.
Thank you for the great, the officers.
Did you get some? Well, very.
No, I passed, but yeah, it was very kind of you to bring that.
Dylan was on it. He was like, he was in third here. You're gonna bring a lot.
Yeah. The slides.
I'm trying to get Zoom up right now.
Okay.
I can see it.
Next one.
It?
No, next one, please.
That's it.
So, St. Helens Police Department presents twice a year. In the spring, we like to come and give you all the data from the prior year. So we'll be looking forward to the spring presentation where we kind of recap 2022, have our total DUI arrests. So today's presentation is kind of give you a snapshot of the work being done with a heavy emphasis on our community events that Lieutenant Hill will talk about. So a lot of our works that is done behind the scenes after the initial police are called, or even if it's summoned to the detectives. But as you can see, our detectives are extremely busy. Today, November 1st, marks the first day that we are down to one detective because Dylan Gasser now is working the road. He had to be removed so we can cover our 911 calls. But since creating this was about a week and a half ago to get it here on time, we've actually increased our amount of our detectives, increased the amount of investigation reports. We're at 422 as of today. And our child abuse cases, which are they come in, they have to be investigated. We're up to 335. That averages in our community about one child abuse case per day that our detectives have to investigate, put eyes on. Now, they don't always end up in a long-term complex investigation, but regardless, we treat everyone that comes across the desk with the utmost sense of urgency to make sure that we're serving our most vulnerable in our community. So next slide. So what we do throughout the year when the school year is we do threat assessments. And even though we removed our SROs from the school, we committed to the school district that we would continue to work through the school, whether it be just walking through the school, whether it would be attending football games when we have a rivalry that's going to play in St. Helens. But one of the areas that we concentrate on is called threat assessments. And the threat assessment, basically, if a student comes to one of the schools in St. Helens School District and says something inappropriate or makes, some type of threat, our detectives will then meet and they'll roundtable with the school officials to ensure that we're doing the best course of action for preventative means. So to date, we've had 10, which we engage into the school, and it's important to showcase this. Not only that we take this with a sense of urgency to ensure that we're serving our community, but also that we continue to partner with our school district, because it's tough when you have something you have to take it away. But it's just, our staff's committed to making sure, and we're in constant communication with the school.
You guys do a good job at that, too.
Yes, yeah, it is relentless follow-up.
Yes.
It's not just going there we create a safety plan, we do follow-up 24 hours, go to the home visits, make sure in case there was a mention of weapons, we make sure that we're doing our due diligence to ensure that it's just not, hey, we're meeting, okay, little Timmy, little Johnny. No, we want to make sure that we put all the right pieces in the right place and have a safety plan to prevent any type of, things that happen in our community.
I just wanted to assure the citizens that we're listening.
So today, one of our big drains on us is we have actually 65 search warrants, and those are search warrants completed by detectives in conjunction with patrol. We use that overlap time that we have officers that we have a overlap to serve these search warrants. So far to date, 65 this year, and you can see it's an increase from last year up 35%, and we don't anticipate that slowing down. These search warrants run the gamut from narcotics to collecting evidence, whether it's electronic or stolen goods. It's all over the board. But our detectives and our patrol officers are really good about getting these. And I've been part of it, help out on those, the eyes in the community, make sure that we don't have any unsurly people walking up or, but they're really thorough before any search warrant's executed. At the minimal, as the lieutenant makes sure that we have every safety plan in effect to ensure that, we're capable of doing this and reduce the chance of any type of thing going wrong. So next slide. So just a couple highlights. We have a lot, if you pay attention to the city news, you'll see that the police department does a lot of media releases with the help of Crystal. We do have a lot of work, a lot of great work going on in our small community of protecting our community and holding those accountable that harm our residents. So we just showcased, we had to pick a few because we have a lot to pick from. So just on the, you'll see that detectives worked on a investigation that stemmed, we arrested an individual out of Vancouver who was responsible for the sexual assault of 2 of our female residents in our town. Pretty heinous, but however, again, their mindset is relentless follow-up, and they just have a lot. So that's just one of the things that we're just showcasing. You can see that, just because of the work being done by the staff, it ends, as much as we don't want this to happen, but at least there's some closure for the victims, if you will, and hopefully this helps and demonstrates the tenacity of the staff. Next slide. So again, something that we spoke about here before, detectives worked on a case that stemmed in arresting a local individual who was delving into child pornography and victimizing juveniles in our community. So because of their hard work, you can see that it's already run the course, that they, he was sentenced to 190 days in jail. We do not determine the sentencing. So whatever, we don't have that. We're very impartial, make sure that we do our thorough investigation and then hand it over to the district attorney's office and let the court system run the process and, what we have in the country. But we're showcasing this because, again, if you go back to those 422 reports, these are gleaned out of those reports, and they just, it's a very busy community. However, we have the capable staff to be able to keep up, as much as we, not to get in discussion, would love to have everybody love them more people. We love to have more counselors, so they're doing a great job on this and they'll continue. So next slide. So one of the cases that Matt Smith, and he's here today, that's really, you want to talk about relentless follow-up. So in 2021, one of our local residents went missing, Terry Schiniver. And before I go on, his family knows that we're discussing this because we're trying to use every platform to get this out to the community. Mr. Schiniver went missing, and it was one of those that it just up and gone. So Matt and Dylan have worked tirelessly in the last couple of years and trying to help the family bring closure to where he's at. So that this investigation has spanned 3 states, federal, local, state involvement. And it is just, they are just beating the drum. So they continuously work on this. Again, that what I'm proud of this, not that that we have to investigate this, but just a relentless follow-up. They just nonstop to find out, just to service this, because if it was any one of us in this room, we'd expect the same level of service. So kudos to Matt and Dylan for just the continuing, and they won't sleep until this is done. Well, I shouldn't say sleep. They won't stop until this is there's closure for Mr. Schiniver's father to get this. So next slide. Oh, one thing I want to talk about before I bring up the R-Canine, talk about the detectives and talk about the level of employees you have. So our detectives are currently looking to revamp an old stalking bill. So in the kind of elementary terms, all the work they do, they came across a bill that was written in 1999, 2000, over 20 years old. That is so old, the statute, this law, that it doesn't account for today's technology. So it seemed this loophole, the detectives, Matt Smith, has taken it upon himself to rewrite this law, get a bill sponsored or co-sponsored to go to the February 2024 short legislative session to update the language to allow for police to do a better job, or I wouldn't say better job, to allow the tools for the police that were missing when this law was first written. So I can speak to this, that we probably all heard of revenge porn or extortion. This new bill will close that loophole on that when you have somebody who is using those explicit photos for extortion to include any type of tracking devices that we now experience. And I don't want to give it, like a tag or something that could be put in luggage or on a vehicle or some type of GPS. The current law does not have language in there. So the caliber employees that you have recognize a problem on top of all their other workload and are able to go out and spearhead this to get it on the legislative session, but not just on a priority bill, which they only, each person gets to take 2. So one is going to be this bill, and then have 14 co-sponsors say, that's a great bill. We need to change this law. And this is not only going to benefit St. Helens, this is statewide to help. And at the end of the day, the reason this is being done is that, again, always with the victim in mind. So this is on top of everything else. And I'd be remiss if I didn't, publicly thank Dylan and Matt for all their hard work, that they continue to work around the clock a lot of times on some of these cases. But this is just for our community to know that, the days of the cops stealing an apple, those are long gone. These professional men and women of our agency continue every day to show up and do that work. So on your screen, you'll see Jax, our recent canine that you've seen the media release out, and how important is this tool, and how valuable is canine. And it is a tool. Within 2 weeks of Jax hitting the road and being certified, Officer Cutright, who's our new canine handler, gets a call at our local car wash of an individual got threatened with a knife. Officer Cutright then encounters this individual who's a no person, we call in our police. They're given verbal commands. It's no. They start aggressively charging Officer Cutright. Officer Cutright deploys Jack outside the car, not on the suspect. And then the suspect gave up. Now, the entire time, we don't know if he had the knife at that time. We don't know if he had other weapons. We don't know his intention. I should say Officer Cutright. But this tool, this dog right there paid for itself, because the tragedy that could have been bestowed upon that incident right there was avoided because of our little friend Jax here. So he's really, within 2 weeks, really solidifies the importance of having this tool. Take aside the community portion, because the only thing the citizens like better than canines, believe it or not, are horse patrol. Citizens love mounted horses. But then the second best thing, aside from Jamie Coy, is the canine. So that's, if you know Jamie, you know that everybody loves Jamie. So that's Jackson and how he's kind of come into play. Next slide, Kat. So this was a kind of a big issue in our community, and this is goes back to the 65 search warrants. So this is an arrest in August of 2023 of this year of the fentanyl and money and illegal narcotics dealing that was taken off the street. So the backstory on this is our officers received a tip from an anonymous tip from a citizen, and they followed up. This isn't just something they put in the desk drawer. They actually followed up and did some really good investigative old school legwork, and were actually they obtained a search warrant for the judge for this individual's house. Then take it a step further. We had officers working swing shift and knew the details of this search warrant that we're planning on serving in a few days from this arrest, and heard our local Scappoose police officer go out with this car at the Burger King in Scappoose. They put 2 and 2 together, so that's our guy. They went down there, and this is what, as a result. So we had the suspect in custody that actually reduced the chance of, any type of use of force, because, when there's narcotics, there's always weapons and there's always bad people. So what happens is that we're able to get them in custody and then follow up. But again, this is just great police work from your officers who continue to serve the community every day. And we read daily about the fentanyl overdoses across the nation. And so that amount right there just shows you how many lives, if I could just be so bold to say this, were saved because of the work that our officers do. This impacts our community, as we know, and this is great work, just another showcase of what they did. Next slide.
Absolutely, and on that particular one, I think because you already had the search warrant, you were able to do it right away.
Correct.
2 days later.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right, so there it is. So I'm going to turn over to Lieutenant Holmes and talk about our community events.
This year we returned to the high school to do the career day, and that's a pretty good event. There's both private and public sector there as well. So hopefully, you never know. Maybe you are able to recruit somebody years down the road. Maybe wants to go to work for the police department. Who knows? So and staying with the school district, we did the annual back to school fair, and movies in the park, which is a deal we do with the rec center. I think there was five events. And then,
yeah, can I just interject something here, Council, not to cut him off, but he's selling himself short. Okay. Lieutenant Hogue did the school fair. All right. Remember, we had a discussion about the staffing a couple weeks ago, and this was the lieutenant showing up to a school fair at the last minute because OSP unfortunately had to cancel. So we went there, took advantage of this. But his commitment, he does this every year. Lieutenant Hogue does. He does this every year with his commitment not only is demonstrated here, but you'll see today a press release went out, if you haven't seen it yet, about an award that the FBI had bestowed upon Lieutenant Hogue. And just some background, the FBI, our FBI is the premier law enforcement agency in the world. Okay, they actually created this award for Joe, if I can say that. Not something they give every time. So this man's commitment, not only to the community, but to law enforcement as a whole, really is on display. And he's a very humble person, we'll never talk about it, to the point where he is also heavily involved with the Oregon chapter of the federal FBI National or Association. FBI National Association Alumni Association. And what that means is that he sacrifices his own time for the betterment to bring state, federal, and local partners together for one goal. But one thing that shines is he's an integral part of the youth leadership program. So the FBI has a program that every year they select one high school student in the state that goes through an interview panel that is able to spend a week in Quantico, Virginia, in a leadership program taught by the FBI, all expenses paid. It is a sought after program that is very difficult to get into. This man here sitting to my right, to your left, is a part of that. And so to the point where the FBI created an award and recognized him on Friday. And I think that, you know, I hope I'm not embarrassing him, and I hope I'm not speaking out of turn, but that right there, again, just another quality employee that the police department has. So never say it, never pat himself on the back. He's not that way. But that ties into his commitment to our youth in the community as well, because he takes the time to ensure, hey, last minute, we can't get there. I'll be there. I'll put my calendar aside. I'll be there. It wasn't the result that he communicated with me. We only had 5 people, again, that came up and talked to him, and out of 5, they all learned to be CSI because they watched the show. So I'll shut up. I'm sorry to kind of interject, but I didn't want that to be lost upon.
Sure, we have a quote from Ramsey, who is the FBI in charge of the Portland field office, and he said this about Lieutenant Hogue. It appears respect and admire his dedication. Lieutenant Hogue demonstrates the values that the FBI promotes daily within our workforce. That's a big deal. Congratulations on that. I did congratulate you when I see you, but again, it is a very big deal. So
Thank you.
bring that up.
Next one, Kathy. We return to Citizens Day in the Park. Usually held in the summer. I think this is the 5th or 6th one that we've had. So that's a good event. I think we've expanded and bought some kids' toys or something, which whistles, which I'm sure all the parents proudly heard. So Lewis and Clark Elementary School looks like story time that Sergeant Eustace is reading there, I guess. Good event there. Always good to be in the high school. It's also good to be in the elementary school as well. 4th of July, always a big event downtown. And we usually try to get a handful of officers just on foot walking around and mingling with the citizens. National Night Out, that's a partnership with the Sheriff's Office. It's been going on several years as well. And that's expanded to where we actually, as you can see in the background, got that little tent there. It's a small thing, but everyone else had a tent, so we bought a tent. So, and then the 7 Mile War, which was recently, and we sent officers over to Scappoose. That a little bit for the safety aspect of it, but also, you know, to kind of promote the rivalry and have the two agencies there together. And, you know, police, donuts, I see there, and football, that's kind of all you need, so.
It is.
Scappoose Police Department supplied the Krispy Kreme donuts, and the intent was to have, if you were a fan of St. Helens, you got the donuts from St. Helens Police, fan of Scappoose. So wasn't the outcome I think all of us were hoping for. You know, we did love it, lose, but what a stellar season they've had and compared to years past. So
Absolutely.
you know, today's kind of a quick one for us because again, we do our big one in the spring. You know, all I could say to this closing, a lot of great work being done by the staff. I don't want to say just officers because we have our folks up front in Alvarado. A lot of very busy this time of year. You know, every year, and you know, we're here for any questions if anybody has any questions or comments, concerns.
Any questions? I don't know if Councilor Sunday has anything, but if not, that's fine. I just want to acknowledge that your liaisons on
Yeah.
Zoom. Yep. I would just, yeah, again, thanks for the report and, all the, hard work that the agency is doing out there to protect our citizens is noted for sure. And our hats are off to, the fine young men and women of the St. Helens PD out there doing it daily.
Thank you. And hopefully in the next spring, we could come back with some good news out of Salem with Matt in the back and hopefully change some laws.
Unmuted.
Okay, Brendan, any comments or questions?
No, no question. Just thanks for all you do, guys.
All right.
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, our next item on the agenda is Finance Division 2023-2024 first quarter report. And I'll turn it over to our financial director, Gloria Bush. Butch.
Hi, Gloria.
Hello, thank you.
Yep.
So different format than what I believe you've seen in the past. Definitely different from the format I used last time for your quarterly report in the June 2023 report. I pulled that off of what I believe was used and given to you in the past and
Sure.
just updated it. So my goal is to make something a little easier for you to read and understand.
Yeah.
And so just kind of want to go through it and see if you have any particular questions, or if there's things that you want me to add to the report that you feel are important. So most of this report basically focuses on our operating funds, the significant major operating funds, the general fund, water, sewer, and storm. The beginning fund balance, and I did want to talk to you about that because what we budgeted for our beginning fund balance at $2.3 million was of course an estimate, because that's what our budget is. But that was quite a bit higher than that I'm estimating our beginning fund balance actually is. So the beginning fund balance is the ending fund balance of our fiscal year. So at June 30, 2023, that ending fund balance is brought up to our beginning fund balance in each fund. And that is what it's mostly cash. It's mostly cash on hand that unspent funds from our last budget year operating. Part of the challenge in estimating the beginning fund balance for our budget, particularly the last couple of years, is because the audits have been so far behind. And by the time we went to budget and we even adopted the budget, we still did not have final audit. Audit is in process right now, and it's underway, and I have estimated that 1.8 million is my estimate of our ending fund balance for fiscal year 2023. So that should give us a fairly good start. I've made most of our adjusting entries and all of that go into doing the audit and the final.
So, but it'll be a little bit less. I mean, you have
Yes,
half a million.
right, yes.
Okay.
So other than that, I think that the significant items in the general fund is in the police department, we've got materials and services that are over the 25% mark of our, so we look at the quarterly at 25%. Okay, so for this first quarter, we will have spent and or received about 25% of our budget. There's a couple items in the police department that we've gotten over, and that is primarily due to
the reporting software that is new and it's underway and developing now. And it's being, that cost is being shared with the county. It was supposed to be also shared with the city of Scappoose,
That's right.
but they pulled out. And then also, when we went to budget, we didn't realize that we were going to pay the full cost of the reporting software and then just be reimbursed by those other entities. So we will need to make a budget revision because of that.
Sure.
We don't have the money in up here in the revenues, and we need the money out in the expenditure. So, and it'll be, it should bring it back down to a near budget. Let's see.
It'll still be a little over because we knew going into this that, but it would be in the long run more efficient for our officers,
Correct.
especially for reporting purposes, because they just slide it over into it's already registered. Once-
Yes,
Yes.
yes, absolutely. That's
You
my
said that
opinion.
you are expecting it to kind of be reimbursed or leveled out. When do you expect that to happen?
So the county has already made their payment.
Okay,
We just need to make the budget adjustments.
right. To be split 2 ways instead of 3.
Correct.
Well, they could even, I mean, sometimes they need that extra time at the end of the shifts to be doing reports. Well, this slides over a lot of their report already.
Mhm.
So they do have some, I think, they have half of it done already. And then they just have to fill in maybe a little bit more information.
Right.
And slide it on through.
Yeah, and of course, the police department can make a better presentation on that software, but it's also my understanding that it's gonna be easier for interagency correspondence and communication. So that if there's something important in a report that affects other agencies or need to know in other agencies, it's more accessible that way. But I'm talking out of my.
Yep. Your finances.
Yes, yes. So in the part of my report, I do a cost of services breakdown. Now these takes out things like capital expenditure, things like that, we would be able to adjust more easily out. So we just want to know what is the cost of the services that we're providing. So in the general fund, it's, those general services. In the charges for services in the revenue area of the operating revenue is includes our general services, it's GSS in our budget. I'm all of a sudden drawn a blank. Yeah, general support services. And so I have done a quarterly adjustment for those. So general support services, the general fund, different departments provide services to other operating funds, water, sewer, storm, street, community development, and we charge those funds for those services. And so on a quarterly basis, I'll do an adjustment to charge out those services. And so the charges for services currently is $1.4 million. This also includes in that there's also the reimbursement from the county for the report writing. So there's going to be a lot of different things in here. As far as grants go, those are under those aren't considered operating revenue. So those aren't in the cost of services report. And grant revenue and grant expenditure. So we do not typically, and best practices is we do not spend on grants unless we have received those grants. There are some cases where there's a reimbursement grant, but we make absolutely sure that we have received that grant award before we would spend on that grant. So that's a difference. For instance, in our general fund, we have $811,000 in grants. 400,000 of that was for our recreation department. And it's like a pass-through grant through the school district. And that award is actually broken out in various years, but we didn't know that at the time of the budget. And so it will be less, but we won't spend 811,000 because we won't receive 811,000. So that's
3 year, over
I
3.
believe it's a 3-year and it's $200,000 a year.
Okay.
So it's actually a $600,000 grant. Yeah. Yeah. So other than that, that's all I had that I wanted to point out. And certainly, I really do want to hear back from you if there's information that you would like to see more in the report, less in the report. If you've got questions, please let me know.
Any questions for Gloria?
You've got a line item contingencies and appropriated funds in every agency.
Can you tell me what
It's just a
page that is?
page. Let's say, just take the water fund. But it's one.
Are you looking at the general fund?
I'm looking at your detailed report here on the below your page 20.
Page 20.
Each one has that item, so
The contingency and unappropriated. So contingency is what is set aside in case there is an unexpected need to appropriate additional monies for materials and services, personnel services, capital outlay, any of that. We would have to do a budget revision in order to spend that, but that's set aside in case. There is also in unappropriated, those are funds that we cannot spend because we have not budgeted those in any way. And those, the only way you can spend unappropriated is if there was like a national disaster. There's very few exceptions to being able to spend those. We try in our operating funds. Our policy is 20% reserve.
thank you.
Gloria, one of the things brought up or mentioned that I just want to give you a chance to speak on is budget shortfalls to pay police. So the only one that we just talked about was for that program. Did you notice any other ones, or was that the only one? Because you already kind of talked about that specific shortfall.
Right. So other than what we already talked about in our budget meetings, there isn't any additional that I'm seeing so far that reduce our or any of our departments, police included.
And just that reporting situation, which you explained. about
Right.
that Report, yeah, okay.
Right.
I just want to make sure you had a chance to say something.
So this year's budget is still looking good, but I just know that the next year's is gonna be, with Cascade leaving, is gonna be a big influx, and that'll be talked about probably in your next report after that.
Right.
To start prepping, for that, but,
Yes, we're working on gathering information so that we know what the impacts are. You know, some of those impacts are going to be in our next half of our budget. So
But we're
probably
already
my
below- We're a
December,
little bit below our contingency right now.
correct. Yes, we are below our reserves, our policy
Yes.
currently.
Yes.
And so that's, you know, it's obviously going to impact. We don't know what the impact will be totally yet, but we are, as I'm speaking, we
Yes.
are working on that, and I'll bring you a more comprehensive report in December, so
And I
that,
know you were busy, that's why I just wanted to bring it out, just to, you know, I know there's questions out there in the public, because it's a big chunk of change when Cascade
it
is.
is.
Yeah.
It is, it's going to impact several of our funds.
Yeah.
General fund.
I like to tell people that we are a wood industry town that's in recovery mode. This is it. This was the last one. The last holdout, two machines down there. From plywood, from veneer to plywood, to 2x4s, to paper making with all the contractors. It's all gone.
Right.
So,
It started as kind of a mill town, and you take those industries away, we need to figure out how to get the next round in, the next industries that will keep us above water. Yeah. Yeah, keep us in business.
okay, any other questions for Gloria? All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, our next item is review proposed amendments to custodian job description. John Walsh.
All right, thank you, Mayor. This is, so custodial services has been a real challenge over the years. Contractors much forever, I think, as far as I know, had outside services doing the work, and that's just been more and more problematic. They're not reliable. They won't come when we call. So we looked at, a couple years ago, we looked at doing 2 part-time people, having two positions, and tried to get those filled, and same kind of issues with nobody wanted a part-time job, or 2 people that want part-time jobs. We went with the company that we had, we went out for another contractor, and it didn't work out. And so we're looking at basically creating a custodial position that reports to facilities maintenance, that cleans our buildings and is accountable. We can sell now, we can direct. The job description is based upon the work, mostly upon the work that the former contractor had. As far as buildings,
That will
services.
be paid out of the GSS.
Yes, it touches all departments, so it gets
Yep.
paid, just allocated across all departments. Changes are in your packet. We've negotiated the position and work conditions with the union. Everything's good to go, updated. Good for your approval tonight. Of the job description, and we'll advertise it. The interim, having two part-timers, it's working all right. You know, we're covering it our basis. It's not, you know, we're selling it anyway, but we're keeping the buildings clean.
Well, I think just with the security issues with some of our areas, that this is a really good idea to do an internal and background check through us and have a city employee. Not as we don't want to stretch the budget any more than we have to keep creating positions. We're not really losing a whole lot in the long run because we've been dealing with this issue for about 4 or 5 years now, maybe longer. Yeah, but 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, this should be, we don't know for sure, but it should be a neutral impact on the budget, because we're paying contractor, we're not paying contractor, now we're paying employee.
Yeah.
And it should offset the cost.
My feeling on it.
What about like PERS and insurance and stuff? I may have missed that, but when you're paying us.
That's more, it's, yeah, the employees are expensive.
Yeah.
For sure, yeah,
So versus a contractor where they're,
but they'll still show up, so.
About the same as the cost per month or per year.
do we have those numbers to look at?
We will be,
No, I mean.
Depends on what insurance we pick
That's
and what some of their other things.
So like those are questions we're gonna get asked, you know?
is through me and Kathy. contractors and hounding them to come and show up and form.
Contractors. No way to go, but they need to be supervised, and not that Kevin didn't do his job, it's can't just.
No, but we've worked. It's-
Companies out there.
They can't get people to pass the background check, so we can't even get them to start, and so it's kind of a non-starter.
Then they start and they quit.
Starting to quit. Good night.
Been going on for quite a while.
Been going on for probably more than 5 years.
Interesting.
Ideally, we would hire contractors.
Big companies having issues with that. I don't understand why it's an issue for us, but I mean, I believe you guys do, it just doesn't make sense to me, 'cause I see housekeeping services and janitorial companies out there
Yeah, you'd think they
doing
would,
a great job and
think they would.
very fluent, so.
The past ones, were they small outfits or large? Why?
Yeah, large, small, anybody interested?
One full-time employee will take care of them.
We are hoping that some of the bigger components as far as annual kind of maintenance would handle as far as hiring somebody to steam clean carpets annually or wash the second story windows, that type of thing. We can bring somebody in to do that additionally.
But I think even that team over there, they're under facility maintenance would sometimes tackle those type
Yeah, we do it
of things too.
ourselves,
Yeah. Would it help assist with the bigger projects? Can't speak for them, but I've seen it actually happen before. Roger, and
Yeah, I mean, just because they're union, we have to be careful about what we assign them
sure,
without changing their job description.
And would this position be union?
It is.
So those are things to consider.
Yeah, the job description is pretty broad in that regard. Or it's very detailed too.
Yeah, and there's, you know, like, if we find out that there's too much on the job description for them to do within a 40-hour time frame, then we're willing to make adjustments to the schedules and to the things that they do, so. There's some flexibility in there, but this is a first time for us, so we kind of need to feel it out.
Well, and this, at the same light, maybe, I don't know if this is a thing or not, but flexibility with pay too, because if they're gonna do less than what we initially hired them for with pay, that's concerning too. If we change their job description and they're doing less, we should probably change their pay also. Just looking at the big picture.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
I
Description,
don't know if that's allowed.
the original description is all crossed out, and then you have a new description.
Correct, yeah, that's based off the part-time.
The one that was crossed out?
Yeah.
Those are based on what the job description was prior to when we were doing the part-time hiring.
That was just our template to start with.
Yeah.
Which council had already adopted. Just working off that starting point.
any other discussion on it?
I mean, I personally like to just see the numbers and make sure it pencils out to what we'd be paying a contractor. Since we're on budget restrictions right now, I'm trying to keep things really tight, so I'd like to see the numbers before I'd be a yes vote on it. We're trying to be-
Then you can just, yeah.
trying to be conservative and thoughtful.
So I hear that, even if it was a little more, I also heard the police department complaining about the conditions there. Were extremely horrible. If we have a city employee that's held accountable to the standard. We don't have that issue. Versus a contractor. Who maybe doesn't even meet security, maybe they do, but then they fall ill and their company's trying to send somebody else out and they're trying to get them approved and they can't pass background check. Or they're waiting on us to pass background check. And so we can't let them even in until they actually pass the background check. And then to come find out that the person they required forgot to disclose to their employer something and they did not pass the background check. And And we're still 2 months now into, and then we hear from our police department how disgusting their facility is. Is that worth it?
Well, I just want to be thoughtful
It's been
and
going on for 4 years, just so you guys know.
hiring an employee is a big thing to do.
I get that.
They're expensive, which we love you guys and we value you, but
I can tell you that the contract that we were paying was $6,500 a month. And the step one for this position is starting out at about $3,500 a month.
and then what about like benefits?
Typically, a full-time employee is about 75 to 80% of their salary on benefits and taxes.
So you're looking at about $3,000. So about 65.
No, actually, it would be under, you said 31.
Yeah.
And then probably
35.
25.
Well, I thought you said 35,
I
Kathy.
did
35.
And then plus
Was it 35?
35.
Oh, okay.
Okay, so it's relatively close.
It would be very close.
Okay.
Appears to be
A wash.
wash, but we don't know for sure.
Wanna make sure.
All we know is that it's not what's happening now isn't working very well.
Yeah, no, I agree, and I honor the creativity that you all have.
Are you making there too? Yes. Oh, yeah.
I just wanna be fiscally responsible up here and think it through. Thank you guys for your input on
The
that.
salary,
Yeah.
the proposed salary that's on the resolution tonight. I did an informal poll of other cities to see what they paid. I presented those to John and to AFSMI, and between AFSMI and John and we all agreed upon on the scale that's on here. So that's where those numbers come from.
Okay.
Appreciate your concern for the budget, because it's very real, especially with Cascades. I think it's gonna be some.
We're gonna be talking about cuts, so we gotta make sure
Talk about. There's some minimum,
staying tight.
keep the buildings clean is important.
Highly important. Yes, it is. Okay, so we'll go ahead and go on to your report then, John.
So talking about the, it's just been super busy with this, closure of Cascades, the mill closure. There's a couple different aspects to think about there that, the city's role as, the governing body of the mill site, the city's landlord, role, the property owner role, so we have different roles we're playing. And that crosses over some financial components too, and where we have, utilities and, water, sewer, gas, electricity, those kinds of revenues that are coming in that are gonna impact the city's budget tremendously. And particularly now, they're not operating, they're working on closure next plan. They provided their 60-day notice to terminate a lease, so we're in conversations around that. And the tone is agreeable, amenable, that they're looking to go exit gracefully. We're hoping for the same. Understanding their impacts, do they have some impacts to the lagoon, that they're acknowledging that they have those impacts, so that's a good first start. And having a conversation about that, so, and that'll be happening over the next few months, 60 days, but they intend to be out by the end of the year. So, and that's gonna leave a big hole in our budget, particularly in the coming year. Utilities are already being impacted, but the property taxes and just, franchise agreements and all that stuff's gonna have an impact.
Well, and then I think also, we might be hitting on it, but the impacts of having to need some power and stuff on down there because of all the equipment that has to have somebody in charge of, even if it's running minimal, like lights on, a pump running.
Maintenance and security, no matter what.
Exactly, yes, I mean, that's what we.
Landlord, you just lost a tenant, so you gotta keep the whole thing running,
When
basically.
we went down there, that's what I heard most of all was that.
Yeah, and thank you, all the council for going down, walking through the mill, understanding what we're facing here and getting some eyes and hands on it to really see what this is all about. It's big and it's real, and we'll get through it, but you know, on the plus side, we have Project Sprint and, you know, a lot of opportunities there with jobs and investment and all that utility. Water usage, sewer, franchise fees would be more than made whole, but this project is successful, so we're encouraged by that. It's still in the feasibility phase, but we're definitely gonna have a dip here for a while in our city finances. And yeah, just for some context, you know, Armstrong, when they left in 2018, I mean, that was a direct $1 million hit to the budget. And the cities just didn't have $1 million to do across their water, sewer, property taxes. So that was across general fund, across utilities, and all those.
Well, Armstrong had announced, what, about 9 months earlier, that they were gonna build a $40 million expansion to that.
Right.
To find out 6 months later that they were shutting down was pretty,
Shock.
yeah, shock to the system.
Big companies, they have,
Yeah,
they're not located here, so
Yeah.
whatever they decide, little company, little part of it, it's got. Do we have a letter signed back from them for their due diligence?
We do, yeah, they had signed it initially in the proposal, and it's city counterpart. But the other city budget, and you also have the urban renewal agency budget that's impacted by cascades pretty significantly. So we're working closely with Tiberius Solutions, even approved the contract for that some time ago. We'll get you a report fairly soon on that. We're having back and forth some the details, but it's going to have some impact on projects' ability to pay for things. Our, you know, streets and utilities project appears to be in a good space. We're fine with that.
Federal dollars helped out a little bit, right?
Well, and
Yeah.
I'll get back to that.
Sorry.
The urban renewal, it's in a good place for the streets and utilities. The Riverwalk project, we're looking at a little because of the cost of the stage is very expensive. You know, just the stage is $1 million, the bid that came back. So we're saying.
so we're gonna contract Russ Hubbard to, oh, we can't, dang it.
Yeah, we're saying
Conflict of interest.
it's this now really the right time to be doing this, and we're gonna come back to this proposal.
$1 million stage seems like a lot, I mean, that's just the stage,
Now we got nothing down there though.
Right, right?
yeah, but
With prevailing wage,
$1 million.
you're asking for it.
So we're gonna.
You have to look at these spec writers, right? Didn't mean to.
No, you're right.
No,
The spec writers putting the finest and most expensive in.
Yeah,
It's, if I may regress here about the planning commission, it was Jenny Dimshow.
Yeah.
Saying, well, they got the first prices back for the stage and the Riverwalk and that sort of thing. And it was over budget. And one of the costs was the grant money said you have to use American steel.
Yeah.
So Jenny's trying to cut costs. And she went back to the engineer. Well, how do we get out of this? Can we use Chinese or foreign steel?
well,
He said, well, yeah, we could figure out how to get around this with a loophole. But the engineer wanted $30,000 more to do that, which got you nothing.
yeah.
And so,
Well,
you know,
cost
things,
control.
you know,
Yeah.
when you got someone designing a project, it's gonna. Hey, watch your designers. They're not cost efficient. Looking out, they'll just do the best beautiful thing you can have.
Yeah, really shocking that it might even go. Well, I'm impressed that a little bit because it was projected at 3 million and 3 bids came back 5 million. So you could almost challenge that designer with their cost estimate. Yeah, but still.
We're seeing supply and demand issues, look at the school bonds, you know? So.
I just wanted to throw that, I was just shocked by the $1 million stage, I mean. We know we can build a stage for,
Talk about a Taj Mahal.
we can grab a.
You don't get the Taj Mahal.
I know.
Yeah.
So the
Can't
urgency
sleep in there.
with the Riverwalk.
You can.
Yeah.
Almost.
The Riverwalk has about $1.5 million of grant that's sitting there that's to help offset the cost of that. So And then we bid the projects separate and separate schedules, the, stage piece and then the Riverwalk component too, so. We're gonna come back, try to get something that's realistic, to exercises the use of grant funds,
What about the playground?
and that'll be some of the things we talk about too, is maybe deferring the playground. And you don't have to even take it out, but it can stay the way it is for a time until the new one's ready to come in.
A lot of creative things that can be done.
Yeah, so we're good.
It needs some maintenance if we leave it. It's got some serious issues.
We have that presentation by the guy that does the stages too.
I was waiting for Rick to come in with the temp stage.
And that's.
No, that's not, I mean, you can always do that, but
That is one of the,
Bring it up.
if we don't do an amphitheater and we just do a flat piece of concrete, we can bring in a portable stage or use it sometimes without a roof or,
it says he even has PAs hooked up to him, so. I mean,
it's very much a
Not that
possibility.
we wouldn't get the amphitheater eventually, I'm just saying.
Right.
Right now.
Yeah, when we're in a huge dip like this, it doesn't make a lot of sense to be. Spend money.
The optics aren't good, as they say.
The bottom line isn't very good, so.
But overall,
Talk about this on the agenda.
Over-
Or-
overall though, what I heard you saying is that the urban renewal is going to hold with the projects we have going, even projected, what you working with Gloria have looked at.
And with Tiberius Solutions, which is experts in this
Okay.
financial forecasting.
Yeah, yeah.
And we're gonna have to do some things as far as taking a 20-year debt, and turning it into a 30-year debt. And to stretch it out, but as the agency builds revenue, we can also pay down that debt too. We can accelerate payments, but it's
Well,
very slow.
Russ's building that'll be a nice little tax coming in. We get 100% of that.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, talk about cost overruns. Private project, we're 30% over what was us.
Yeah.
Right? That's what I'm saying. We're seeing that all around town.
Part of the financial modeling we're doing is in a no growth. Worst case scenario, so there's nothing happening on the waterfront, there's nothing happening in Armstrong,
Yeah.
we're looking at, if it gets really bad, then are we okay?
That's fine. I mean, we don't have to.
So anything we get is positive, so we don't wanna model for too
We're
much.
talking about this for 10 years, so it's not like you do it all in 1 year. Still, the city needs public to get down there rather than being cut off like they have been. I think they
Yeah.
open up what you can and it covers the ground.
And we're talking about this, maybe even just the pathway and leaving off a lot of the stages and stuff like that. Yeah.
You're gonna bring that though to as an agenda item with Jenny and
Yeah,
some,
we'll be talking about it.
we can talk about it and more.
And it's significant, it's substantial enough change, I will probably go back through. You'll look at it, probably remand it back to planning commission, kind of break it through to talk about it. There's a lot of pieces there. Staff is not, because it's so much change, just want you guys to look at it, so. As far as the federal piece, a few years ago, the city ran through EPA, a community-wide assessment grant, which is basically an assessment work, and that program was very successful. They evaluated properties, had cleanup dollars to do different things, and we're working, reached out to those folks. Again, right now, their Colpack is doing, the second partnership is doing a Northwest regional one, but they have $800,000 to work with to help projects that need cleanup kinds of activities and work better, but so we may have some opportunities there, and next grant cycle we'll probably put in for the Cascades Mill site to help us in the cleanup and assessment work that's going on there. This is actually dollars to clean up things, the industrial sites back, tax rules and reuse. So that's
But a key part of that needs to be discussed is that the city is not liable for that. The uplands is office max. I mean, it's great that we can use some federal dollars and help assist things, but we are not on the hook for that.
yes, I'm talking about tearing
I
down.
want to make that clear.
Crushing concrete and steel.
Okay, yes, but I just want to make that clear. Yes, so that would actually help, like you said, with crushing concrete, maybe get rid of steel, whatever, whatever. But yes, I want to make sure that that is very clear and the council knows that it's like about 45 years still left on that.
Identification.
Yes, that they, if anything's discovered uplands, and they're also the in-water stuff. That you'll hear people talking about frequently about that.
It's all the Cascades property.
It's all Boise's liability, and then actually sister company Office Max, and DEQ is well aware of all that. Yep.
They're gonna do their due diligence on the site, the potential purchasers.
Correct, we're in that window.
So they'll be coming to us and saying, well, here's what we wanna do. Do we have any game plans of knowing where we are, what we've got to even talk to them? I mean, you talk about their legal issues, cleanup issues, property lines. I don't even know where they would they? You know, what do you want to keep? on
We've
the
done
site?
it well.
That's good.
A lot of work on the mill site as far as site characterization. Not so much on the environmental issue sides, but the as far as understanding the, you know, wetland and riparian issues, parcelization, right of ways, utility signs. We're I think we have a pretty good base map, and you know, the biggest thing is the electrical power, getting PG to meet their timeline and needs, and we've been tirelessly.
How's that going?
We're, you know, so working hard on it.
Yeah,
Mohammed and I,
your
and
report,
I was gonna give a shout out to you know, Mohammed and Paul Vogel, myself, Mayor's been right there. Trying to move this along and getting you know, PG. If they can meet this power need, that's one of the biggest obstacles we're identified at this point, as far as whether or not it can be. I mean, their footprint's massive, and I think most of the impacts are mitigatable as far as environmental constraints. And
Utilities, we could.
as far as wastewater and water, they'd be tremendous customers, and
They require a huge amount in that process, I guess, from what I understand.
about the same as Cascades. Yeah, except for it'll be a city water customer rather than a.
Who else?
Actually,
Yeah.
So all those containers would leave, would be.
Potentially, unless never needed.
Actually, it's less than Cascades, the water coming into the lagoon.
Even the district.
That's not the 8 million, it's not the 5 million,
Yeah,
it's the 1 point,
yeah.
yes,
That's what I'm.
He's talking about water usage though, not stuff coming out.
yeah.
Yeah. It's right now, well.
I was just over talking with Aaron, and it looks like just about stuff, and the numbers look good for all that. So, but back to the power issue, is that PGE is going to need, and that's what I was hoping you were gonna talk about. As expressed, that they're gonna need 5 to 6 acres for it. We're hoping only 5, because it's that they wanna buy from us for a substation and battery storage,
To expand there.
which serves our mill. It's like, we can't bring in any big power users right now. Can't do it.
Right,
It's just not feasible.
we've been working on a design for new substation they have it designed for a new substation there.
That's what I thought.
On the mill site, and it's been there in the works. We need to transact that property to PG. And we've had conversations about PG's policy.
And a request to build,
Request to build.
in order for the line too, that gets here. So that's really needs to be discussed, and I thought that's what we were talking about in your report. So I'm getting you along. I'm getting you along.
We're jumping all over the place. I mean, we're
Well, no,
like,
it's kind of with the bill.
It's very much related to the barrier for this development. That's, you know.
Hey, so here, if anybody's watching or listening,
See you later.
no, yeah, hopefully.
Mhm.
There's 700 acres in Scappoose and St. Helens. The current line that comes through and feeds our PUD is owned by PGE, and it will only serve up to 50 megawatts for the entire 700 acres from here clear to Rainier. We're asking PGE to put in a substation and a bigger line which feeds our whole, not just us, the PUD area as well, which makes more industry more attractive to Scappoose, to Rainier. Because right now, there's only 50 megawatts between Linton and Alston Mager. That's a long ways away. That's the bottom line, and we are trying to spearhead as a city. Really,
Yeah,
this conversation
light up the whole county.
and get it going.
Who pays for that?
Well, that's PGE.
Okay, so
They will
PGE,
buy the property from us,
and they
yes.
will have to do.
But they also need they need requests to build, they need the PUD to maybe also do the same thing. Because PUD shares that line that they have. So,
That's your own utility, yes.
Yep. so that's how important this really is. I just want, like I said, I didn't want, that is like the big elephant in the room that everybody's talking about, power issue in our entire area. Correct?
It is.
We refused businesses from coming here because we did not have enough power. Paul Vogel said probably about anywhere from a dozen to 2 dozen businesses for sure that would have located here if we had the power.
Weird to me how we could, you know, have a fully operational mill like that size with the power that we have there now. But now it's not enough power, so kind of odd to me, because that mill is huge. There's
Well,
some
they did a lot of boiler stuff too. I mean, they did a lot of things to not have to use
Offset.
heat,
Okay.
not have to
Natural
use
gas,
powers, yeah, natural
Okay.
gas meters like that. Big and that big around and.
Okay, that makes more sense to me now, just understanding it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it was pretty intricate, their heating system, wasn't it, their boilers and.
Well, the natural gas, you know, that's what offset the power usage probably, but go out and look at Intel and look at the power lines around there, so they all need electricity, the clean rooms are just hugely power consuming.
Yeah, it's been pretty all consuming, but the upsides are tremendous for our community.
3,000 jobs, a lot of investment dollars, and not just this, maybe this, hopefully this works out, but.
Is the Armstrong site just a separate building, because they're dealing with an independent?
Yeah, the Armstrong's still owned by
But
Armstrong.
that would draw off that same 50 megawatts of power, that, which is maximum line.
I'd be wiping out the PUDs,
Yeah,
that's all you got.
yeah. Mhm.
That's what the-
Yeah. Yes.
That's your other board.
Yes.
So last meeting, we had the Kelly Street property, we went back, talked to legal, trying to get an updated valuation to kind of alleviate any concerns about corruption, still in the process. Assessors, appraisers are really hard to get right now. The one that we were using is not taking on anything new right now, so I'm looking at some others that are qualified and working that commercial land space, not so much the residential side. The central waterfront, I think that work has been progressing as far as the FEMA money that we took in the grant. Spending that, we're looking at an early checking on that work, early to mid-January right now.
And that's for the berm itself.
The stability of the berm and conditions around the lagoon and what would happen in an earthquake kind of thing. And
Despite whatever you might hear from somebody giving testimony, that's exactly what it's about.
it's not about putting anything or taking anything out at this point. So
Sorry, but that one's been all over the place.
that's it for the big stuff.
All right.
It's 7th Street, container homes.
That is still in.
That's part of the appraisal, right? You're getting 3 appraisals?
Yes, well, that was gonna be some of the appraisal work, but the owner thinks he has it figured out, but we're gonna still kind of push the issue to see if maybe we can just get it done.
Yeah, the appraisal. Still did the appraisal, right? Yeah.
I just want to make sure the city gets paid back for their permits.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, there's
Yep,
it'll be
I
part of the
agree.
appraisal. I have a whole folder on what the appraisal is gonna be built.
We have Millard Road. Kelly Street. And 7th Street.
Do we have any appraisals in the works of those 3?
That's what he's.
As of this morning, I talked to an appraiser, and yesterday I talked to an appraiser. And they're just getting referrals because they're booked out until past first.
So all three of them are still looking.
Yeah.
Okay. Do we have anything for executive session?
Just one quick thing.
Okay. All right, so we're gonna go ahead and adjourn, but before I do, we'll be going into executive session under ORS 1926602E. Real property transaction and H consulting with council potential litigation.